initially set off just to write a paper, just to kind of raise certain issues about what might be going on when students encounter a point of difficulty in their learning. And we'd picked up this notion of liminality from social anthropology and started wondering, is something like liminality happening here? You know, metaphorically, is there a liminal phase, as the anthropologists claim there are in kind of cultural situations? But our understanding developed. I think we became more aware of this liminal space as an area of interest in itself, and that has become an area where people have got interested and felt rather kind of black box-like in a sense, in terms of it's very difficult to kind of access in research terms. So how might we develop some kind of vocabulary or discourse to talk about a liminal state and what might be going on there where you can't see it directly, you know, and then as a result of that, well, if you can't get at it directly, how can you get at it kind of tangentially? You know, how can you make it, render it visible in some way, get students to talk about it or to map it or to draw it or whatever.
I love the way many colleagues use metaphors, for example, to describe this liminal space as a tunnel or a fluid space. There's also a lot of language that's really interesting to investigate about how the liminal space is described. And if we compile that language, it looks like there's a lot of negativity. It seems that way. So I think there's a lot of good work to be done there, because from my perspective, that's where teaching and learning happens. It's that we're in that liminal space. We're creating, hopefully, a holding environment for students within that liminal space.
I think initially we started very much thinking in terms of concepts and conceptual space, and about moving into new conceptual terrain, like going on a journey, you know, where you go through a portal into a new space. But we realized later that in that new space, and even to get into that new space, very often you have to become different. You have to change. So this space wasn't just a space of changed ideas, it was a space of changed being. So that opened up a whole new area as well. And then as a result of that, you know, colleagues got, and some of the colleagues working on this are with me here in the US at the moment, that they got interested in, well, what does it feel like to be in those spaces? And part of the difficulty might be the whole emotional area and affective dimension of being in liminal spaces or being in changed conceptual spaces. You know, the strangeness of it, the frustration of it, the anxiety of it. You know, what kind of experiences might students have? And I remember Peter Felton from Elon coming to talk at Durham, giving a marvellous keynote a few years ago at a Thresholds Concept conference. And he'd done some work with students, and the vocabulary they were using to talk about these states was very, very powerful. You know, they were using words like horrible and fear, and this made us think, wow, there's a lot of strong emotion going on here. So this whole area of how might we help students and support them.
So I think liminality can be a space for well-being if we think differently about what we can accomplish in that space. So I was, referring to the language, for example, that we use. Are there ways to think differently about some of those characteristics? So, for example, is doubt bad? Well, another facet of doubt is curiosity, so it's something that we can actually foster. Is stress always negative? There's interesting research right now that's saying that there are other ways, other mindsets that we can have about things like stress, for example, that can reshape our experiences. So I'm excited about thinking differently, not only the way teachers can think differently about the liminal space and then shape that liminal experience for students, but then how students can come to think about the liminal space as a place where well-being is fostered, and that well-being is something that doesn't always look like positivity and happiness, that there's a more nuanced, complex perception of what well-being is that involves some of this discomfort, for example, that accompanies the liminal space.